August 29th, 2014. 911 receives two strange phone calls reporting someone may have jumped off the Horace Wilkinson Bridge in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. When police arrive on the scene, they find Jake Latiolais' truck still running in the right-hand lane near the exit. The owner of the truck was nowhere to be found. Strangely, Jake's crutches and his wallet were missing. He was also in a walking boot waiting to have surgery on a broken foot. The boot would be discovered at home. The crutches were never officially found. Police searched the waters, but his body wasn't found. To make matters worse, the trailer that he had shared with a roommate had been ransacked. All of Jake's valuables had been taken, including his guns, his PlayStation, and his TV. Police wrote this whole case off, saying Jake just wanted to end it all. Why would he end it all when he was preparing to go to court to win the custody of his child? If he did want to end it all, why didn't he just use his own guns at home instead of driving to a heavily trafficked bridge that he didn't normally use? Why was his roommate able to sleep through the whole ordeal? And why were both of those 911 calls coming from the same phone number, even though they acted like two separate people? A jurisdictional dispute over who should be policing the bridge has caused even more trauma for Jake's mother. She has become the primary investigator of her own son's disappearance. What happened to Jake Latiolais? This case is brought to you by Chaos Rules in Madhouse, Madison County, Missouri. This rural community should be a safe place, but it hides a dark secret. Fredericktown is one of the most dangerous places to live in America. With a crime rate of 31 per 1,000 residents, Fredericktown has one of the highest crime rates compared to all communities of all sizes. I started researching one case sent to me by a desperate grandmother that led me to 15 more. Then I realized this county has had murder, corruption, and chaos since before the Wild West days. This book will start with the lynching by a Fredericktown mob in 1844 and will end up in an explosion. Hold on to your seats when you read this one. You're in for a wild, chaotic ride through rural Missouri. Check out my new book, Madhouse, Madison County, today. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Chasing Justice. I am your host, Sonova Cantrell. I have two of my favorite co-hosts on the line with me. I have fellow victims advocate and crime writer, Cricket Andrews. I need more coffee. Cricket Andrews, how are you?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show.
I need more coffee. I haven't had enough coffee today. I also have my favorite research assistant, Miss T, on the line. How are you, Miss T?
I'm good, and I made my name easy for you. So there you go.
I appreciate it. So tonight we are going to be discussing a missing persons case out of Mississippi. Now I may mispronounce his name, and I'll apologize in advance. Before we get started, while I'm waiting on more people to sign on, I do want to make a quick announcement. I will be attending the Advocacy Con in Indianapolis this weekend. So if you are in the area, come out and see me and Miss T. Miss T is going to be there with me. I have to have some of my entourage with me or I can't go. So
I wish I could go.
I know. I was like, I need Cricket to go too. So sometime we're all three going to go, and we'll be like the three amigas of true crime. So, but I am going with Miss Chrissy. She is the one that we spoke of a couple weeks ago on our True Crime Tuesdays, our Chasing Justice event. Her name is Chrissy, and her mother is Wilma June Nissen. Now, Wilma is actually, she was a Jane Doe for 37 years, and then her daughter had been looking for her, and it's a heart-wrenching case. Make sure and check that out. And like I said, if you're in Indianapolis, make sure and come out and see us. I'll try to have enough coffee so I can actually get 2 words out. So we're going to be talking tonight about a very, very disturbing case. His name is Jake Latiolais. Now, he was 22 years old, and on August 29th, 2014, it is said by some that he decided to jump off of the Horace Wilkinson Bridge in Baton Rouge, Mississippi. I am really batting 100 today. So Horace Wilkinson Bridge actually spans the Mississippi River between East and West Baton Rouge. Now at 2 a.m., 911 received two strange phone calls saying that there was a man there. It looked like he was going to jump off the bridge, and then a short time later, they got another phone call saying it looks like he jumped off the bridge. Now this was really a strange phone call because the first caller was calm and collected. The second caller was hyper and stressed out and losing it a little bit. And come to find out, both of those phone calls came from the same phone number. And it seemed almost as if it was one person trying to sound like two separate phone calls. Now, that is suspicious enough. But when you find out that Jake actually had a severe foot injury, he was in a walking boot and on crutches, he was waiting for surgery on his foot, you'll find out that the crutches were never officially found. You'll find that his wallet's missing. And you'll find everything else was in his truck like it was supposed to be, except for his walking boot. His walking boot was actually found back at his house. So his mother has been fighting for all of these years and has sworn from the beginning that this is not what her son would do. Of course, a lot of people will be in denial if their child does this. Again, we're reduced to our cartoon little sign here of the word that YouTube will not allow us to say, or you get demonetized. We do not believe that Jake did this on his own accord. And the mother has many, many reasons to verify her story. So if it wasn't suspicious enough that the police arrive on scene, they find his truck running. So his truck is found on the bridge. It's found in the far right-hand lane, and it's still running, and it's in the middle of traffic. It is causing issues for anybody that needs to get off onto that exit. They would have to get into that lane, so they're having to swing out around this abandoned vehicle, and it's running. So the police get there, and the truck is running. Jake is nowhere to be found. They said they searched the water, but they didn't find anything. Nothing came up, within a week or so, and they've never found the crutches. So I don't know of anybody that would hop a railing at the bridge with their crutches and take their crutches with them if they were going to go. All of that seems suspicious enough. But then you have to add in a very disheartening dispute between two police departments. Now, the bridge actually is the line between two police departments, East and West Baton Rouge. Now, the problem is nobody's really sure whose jurisdiction the bridge is under. So you have 1 minute it's the East Division, and 1 minute it's the West Division, and each one of them have spent the last 11 years passing the buck back and forth, and the mother is left to fight for this herself. Now, there is nobody actively working this case as far as we can tell as of now, and except for the mother. Now, we will tell you that she ended up going back to her son's trailer. Now, the trailer was actually shared with another roommate, and it was it was in good shape. It was a nice place, but when she goes in, she finds that it has been ransacked. There's holes in the walls, there's broken windows, there's broken other things, and all of her son's valuables are missing. So all of his guns, all of his PlayStations, his televisions, anything of value in his belongings have been rifled through and missing. But strangely, his walking boot was still there. Now, he was not allowed to take that walking boot off unless he was taking a bath or going to bed. And I'm going to show you a very graphic picture. So hold on to yourself if this is a trigger warning. So I'm going to show you his foot, and it is not a very pretty sight. So this is the injury that this man had. So I contend he would not have crawled over the railing if his foot was in that bad a shape, especially without his walking boot. So to make it even worse, when the mother asked the roommate what happened, the roommate says, "I have no idea. I went to bed on August 28th and everything was fine. I woke up on the 29th and the house looked like this." Why he didn't call the police, why no investigation was done, nobody knows. And and yet he somehow slept through all of this devastation and destruction in his house. So that is a little bit suspicious in itself. Then you find out that this young man actually was fighting for custody for his child, and he had a good chance of winning custody because of a conviction his ex had. So he, in a couple weeks, was actually supposed to go to court, and he had been lining everything up to win custody, full custody of his child. And so all of these things add up to say suspicious. And then we're going to find out even later, 5 years after this man was gone missing, somebody is cashing his stimulus checks during the big C, the pandemic. And so who was cashing his checks and why? So this is where we're going to start talking. We're talking about Jake Latiolais, and I will show you. You guys seen one picture of him. I'm going to show you another picture of him so you can see what this young man looks like. So this is Jake Latiolais. Now, don't get all excited. This shows him on a Crime Stoppers website. There is actually no law enforcement actually looking into this case. They have written it off and said that he did this to himself, and all of the other questions are irrelevant. Now, I hope the IRS comes in and tracks down whoever's using his checks, and we figure out what happened. So that's kind of giving you an overview, start of what this chaotic case is about. Cricket, what was your thoughts when you heard of this? The truck running in the middle of the bridge, and he's missing, so are his crutches, and then you find out his walking boots back at the house. Does any of that sound legitimate to you?
No. And also, as someone who's recently quit smoking, you're not going to buy 3 packs of cigarettes, get a full tank of gas, and jump.
Yeah. Well, to me, this is something that every case that I've studied, I'm not a law enforcement. I don't have an actual degree, even though I've studied all kinds of criminal psychology and things. From the hundreds of cases I've studied, I have never seen someone who is going to commit this word, the S word, off of a bridge and leaves their vehicle running. They usually shut it off and get out. They don't leave it running. Half the time, they don't leave it in the area. They park it elsewhere and they walk. So to me, just finding that the vehicle was running is suspicious. Then I'm going to add one more call that makes it even more so. Just before the strange 2 a.m. 911 calls, you get another phone call. Now, this is a large bridge. It's 6 lanes running a split, so 6 lanes. So you can't get from one side of the bridge to the other. You have a law enforcement officer who was traveling in the opposite direction who noticed this abandoned truck in the middle of the way. And he calls it in and he says that there's an abandoned truck in this such and such lane on the bridge. There's also a gray car. I've heard gray and I've heard silver. There's a gray car that is nearby it. And so nobody's ever looked into seeing who that gray car was. No one's ever looked into anything in this case because they have written it off and then passed it back and forth so many times that really nobody's investigated anything except for the mother. Now, the mother's name is Tina. I don't know if she's watching now or if she'll watch later, but feel free to add your comments. We would love to hear from you. But this is a case that is so disturbing because who is supposed to police in between jurisdictions? You'd think that this jurisdictional dispute wouldn't destroy a case. One or the other would take it. But neither one of them are actively taking it. And everybody wants to write it off. And yet this man, you saw his foot. I don't believe he could go anywhere without that walking boot. I believe wholeheartedly that something happened to him at his house. That's the reason why there was holes in the walls and it was ransacked. I believe something was done with his body. And then the silver car that was seen on the bridge with the truck was probably the getaway driver. 2 people drove his vehicle, left it on the bridge. It's still running because they were hurrying away from the scene. It would have been more believable if they had shut the truck off. What do you think, Miss T? I haven't heard from you yet.
And that's what I thought whenever somebody mentioned the other vehicle that somebody, took two people to take the truck over there. And I noticed it was another one of those cases when something happened right before he was to go to trial.
Mm-hmm.
We see a lot.
Right.
So,
That's that's what we're talking about. 2 weeks before he's supposed to go to court, he's gone. Go ahead, Cricket.
I caught something in the second 911 call.
Okay.
The person asked him who told him or how does he know, and he said somebody on the radio, the CB. So if that's the case, which truck driver really saw that and said something on the CB radio that this person heard, and the truck driver doesn't come forward?
Well, to me, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then, so he says that
he heard
he
it.
says that he heard it from a trucker,
Yes.
But then he also had called and was frantic once and called and wasn't frantic another time.
Right.
So which call did he call in on his own accord? If he heard it from a trucker, which time did he call when he heard it from the trucker? To me, it doesn't make any sense. That's something else that just
because
really doesn't add up.
Yeah, because if a truck driver saw that and mentioned it on the radio, how many other people would have heard it? You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? That's out right there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So this is a picture of his mother. His mother's name's Tina, and she has been fighting for 11 years trying to get somebody to listen to her. And she's been doing all this investigation herself. Now, what's disturbing is this young man has a child with an ex-girlfriend, and this ex-girlfriend, we won't mention her name, and we're not accusing anybody of anything, but this ex-girlfriend has a conviction on her record that could go in his favor, a very drastic conviction that could be the kind of the clincher for Jake to win custody. Now, we do know that they had been fighting by text message earlier in the day. We do know that she asked him to meet her at a local Walmart to talk, and it didn't look like he responded or that he said he was going to be there. We don't have any specific evidence saying that he went there to talk to her, but in the truck was found that those 3 cartons of cigarettes or 3 packages of cigarettes. I didn't hear, was it a carton or a pack? I don't know.
I think it was 3 packs. But
packs.
Regardless, you're not going to buy.
No, but he had 3 packs or 3 things of cigarettes that he had recently bought, and the receipt or his checking account, whichever, said that it had come from that Walmart. So did he actually go to that Walmart to talk to her and ended up picking up cigarettes while he was there? And did he come back home? Now, you'll listen to some podcasts that go off on a tangent about his fishing trips. You'll listen to some podcasts that go off on all these details. What we need right now is really not any major conspiracy theories. We don't need we don't need to know people's trying to be Miss T, help me. trying to be calm. I listen to some of these podcasters and they want to interview family members and be rude to them. And that ticks me off. They come on your show to speak their mind, and then it's up to you to edit out what you think needs to be said and what not to. It's not your place to be rude to the family members.
Yeah,
and I listen to some of these podcasters. They're rude, they're disrespectful, and then they also ask the most asininely stupid questions, like, what's your favorite color? Unless their color happens to be some kind of serial killer's fetish and he tied people up with purple ropes, it doesn't matter what the favorite color is. Ask the important things. Don't waste people's time asking the non-important things, and so, but when you get into this, you hear of a mother who was devastated because she lost her child, but is compounded by the fact that the police department aren't there to support her. You see, when in America, our tax dollars pay, for our security, and these police officers, and these things are supposed to be paid for by our tax dollars, and we are living under this umbrella of naivety, thinking that they're going to be there for you when you need them. And this mother has found out the cruel truth that they may not be. And so she's having to do her own investigation, and she's having to try to get her son's story out there. So she's digging up all of this information, all of this rumor mill stuff, all of the things. And you need to know all of those things. That doesn't mean that they're all legitimate or true, but you need to know them so you can sort out what is factual and what is not. So when she comes forward and she has all this information, that's what the police do. They gather all of the information off the street, and then they follow the facts. And sometimes that information off the street helps interpret the evidence that they have, and it doesn't really make sense. Sometimes that rumor mill helps. But when you're interviewing somebody like this, you don't be rude to them. You let them talk. You girls know that recently we interviewed a family, and the interview was so bad, I didn't use any of the video content. I ended up having to edit some stuff together and re-record and everything to make something quality for that victim's family to go out to the public. But we weren't rude to them in any way. And so to me, I feel like this woman right now needs us to tell the story as we know it and to ask for information. So when we talk about the ex and the ex-girlfriend that has this child with Jake, we're not accusing, but we are wondering why the police wouldn't speak to her. Why haven't the police interviewed her? Because she could possibly be the last person who's seen him alive, and then he drove back across the bridge and was going home. Okay. We don't know. All we know is he had a something that he purchased from Walmart, and that there was a text message that he was supposed to meet her at Walmart. So did they meet? That is something that the law enforcement should ask. Now, of course, when you don't have a badge and you don't have any legal authority, you're just the mother. You can't go after these people and ask them anything because they won't answer you. They don't have to answer you, unfortunately, and it could be very dangerous. So this mother is pushing everything that she can, doing everything she can, talking to everybody who will talk to her. But we need law enforcement to step up. I don't care if it's West or East Baton Rouge. Both of you get your butts together and do something in this case. This boy did not jump off that bridge. You've seen this kid's foot. He was not allowed to walk on that foot without crutches and that boot. So what did he do? He decided to leave his boot at the house, and he hobbled out to the truck without his crutches, because obviously his crutches just disappeared into oblivion. They're not at the house. They're not in his truck. They're not in the Mississippi River or along the bank somewhere. So he just threw them to the wind and they disappeared. And then he hobbled out to his truck on one foot, got in his truck, drove 3/4 of the way across the bridge that he doesn't normally drive on to go where he needs to go. And then he just decides to get out of the truck without shutting his truck off. He decides to hobble, because he'd have to hobble around the hood of his truck. So he couldn't just get out and step off. He had to hobble around the hood of his truck and then haul himself over the railings, all without a walking boot, and your foot is looking like this. I mean, you can't tell me that he did that. I mean, none of that makes sense. And so when you get into some of these cases, you really got to understand that you want to say, oh, well, he did this or he did that. Well, use a little bit of sense, use a little bit of logical thinking. If your foot hurts, okay, you might walk on it anyways. But if you're waiting for surgery and your foot is destroyed to that level, if you step on that foot and hurt it worse, you may or may not be able to have that surgery. If it gets worse, your foot can get so mangled that surgery won't even fix it. And so if it's that bad, you're not going to risk the chance that you're not going to get to have surgery and fix it. So he's still waiting for surgery. He hasn't had surgery, and it's been 2 or 3 weeks, and now he's sneaking around trying to walk on it without the boot, even though he's not supposed to, like everybody does. This is before, so he hadn't had the surgery, and the mother has spoken and with the doctors and gotten his records and everything, and she has proof from the medical professionals that he had not had his surgery yet. So the reason why we're bringing this up, on top of everything else, she has spent 5 years, the first 5 years, saying that he could not have jumped off this bridge and his crutches be missing. So she was really pushing hard about the crutches thing. And then all of a sudden, 5 whole years later, the aunt calls Tina. Now you have to understand there's a divorce situation. He wasn't necessarily he was closer to his mom and his brother than he was his dad's side of the family. So it's odd that his aunt just randomly calls Tina and she says, "Oh, hey, I know where his crutches are. I have his crutches. They're out here in her shed, and they've been there for 5 years because he came by and said he didn't need them anymore. The doctor had released them, so they're in his shed." So why did she wait 5 years? Besides the fact that it was unrealistic that he dropped by, because that wasn't necessarily, he wasn't that close to all of that side of the family, from what I can tell. But also, why did she wait 5 years for it? And why would he say that the doctor released him when he hasn't even had surgery yet? Does any of that sound legitimate to you girls?
No.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
No. And another thing that I find highly suspicious, now they didn't say exactly like a time frame, but that trailer burnt down shortly after. So any evidence that could have been found, because nobody looked for anything, but now you can't look for anything.
Right. And that was shortly after. The mother can't even nail down the exact date that happened. And they said some truck caught on fire and it caught the house on fire or something. And I'm like, none of this makes sense,
And the police didn't even go to the trailer right after.
No. The police said, well, it's out of our jurisdiction. We don't have authority to go to the trailer. And I'm like, well, then send somebody that's in the jurisdiction to go do it. So that means if that kind of thinking takes us all the way back to the 80s, where if you could outrun the cops to the county line, then you don't get a ticket.
Right.
I mean, that's the way it was in the 80s. If you outrun them, got out of their jurisdiction, they couldn't do anything to you. I'm like, it hasn't been that way for a very long time, but I'm like, that's not the way it works. If you do something in whatever county, that county sheriff can chase you all over freaking United States. They can trace you anywhere because the crime happened in their county, so it's like all of that makes no sense whatsoever. So I'm going to jump over here to Google Earth real quick so you guys can see what I was looking at earlier, just to kind of give you an idea. I like to give you an overview of what we're looking at. So this is the mighty Mississippi, and this right here is the bridge that we're looking at, okay? It is called the Horace Wilkinson Bridge, okay? So it's a big, long bridge. I want you to take notice here. It said he was in the far right-hand lane, not in the exit, but you would have to get in. It was like that's where you needed to get over if you were going to get into that exit. Well, look how much space is between. So you've got from here all the way to here before the exit. That's a big, long bridge over dirt. You see that?
Yep.
See how much dirt there is that he'd have. So, I mean, if he was right here, how did he jump off into the water? He would have to be here, which he would be in this little reservoir, or here. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, he couldn't have been too close to the exit, or he would have jumped off into that field.
Right.
Are you seeing what I'm seeing, or is it just me?
No, I see it.
Okay, so we're going to zoom down. We're going to turn on this little man, and we're going to zoom down here. We're going to look at the bridge. Okay. All right, so this is, of course, daytime, but he should have had his vehicle. See, look at all this stuff right here. He couldn't have been pulled over right anywhere along here, or he would have been found.
Right.
I contend they should have looked a few miles down the river and seen if he washed up, but he didn't wash up anywhere. Okay, so I'm trying to get down this away so you can kind of see where he's at. He's in this lane right here. I'm still not out over the water. Look how far I'm having to go just to get back out over the water. This bridge goes a long ways over land.
Mm-hmm.
It's not letting me get very far here. So, I mean, I've gone quite a ways. So if the truck was parked in here somewhere, he would had to get out of his truck. So we're going to turn around and be parked the same way. So he's parked right here. He would have had to get out into this lane because there's no way to pull off. That's a curb right there. He'd had to get out of his truck here, hobble on one foot, go up to the front of the truck and all the way around the truck, and then come over here, come up this step, and then crawl over this railing to jump off. Can you see him doing that with that walking boot? It might be hard, but he could do it with a walking boot maybe, but he didn't have his crutches or his walking boot. Does that sound like something you could do, Tammy?
Nope.
I mean, it doesn't sound legitimate to me at all.
No.
I mean, there's no place to pull over. You've seen some bridges that have like a biker's trail or a walking trail alongside, but that is a very thin curb. I mean, you couldn't even really walk on that curb without getting too close to traffic. I mean, that's not even a place that you could really walk comfortably with heavy traffic. I mean, you've seen some that they have this curb that you can walk along. I mean, that is really thin. Are you guys seeing it?
Yeah, and he climbed over that railing.
Yeah, with his foot the way that is. Well, and I contend if he stopped right here and hit this, there's a good chance that the water may have taken him in underneath this kind of thing or trapped him in this. And you know what I mean? If he had gone over right here, he could have got tangled up in some of this stuff and easily found. I mean, if he got out here, the whole flow of the water could have got him way far away, but he would still come up eventually.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And also, now that you have that other car that, and this is just my opinion, that somebody was driving his truck and somebody in the other car to leave his truck there and get out of there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is, to me, okay, the theory is that he did this himself. Okay. If he did this himself, why did he work so hard to get his daughter? And he had gone through all the legal things that he needed to do and he was ready to go to court. Why did he do that? Why did he buy cigarettes recently? Why was he working multiple jobs? Because he was trying to make enough money to support a child. Why was he going through all of those things? And then switching over to his medical issue, why was his boot back at the house when he couldn't take that off? And why was his crutches never found? Why would his crutches randomly show up in a shed of a relative 5 years later? And nobody could really verify that by then.
And there's never any mention that he had prior depression issues.
Yeah. His mother says that he didn't have depression. He didn't have any mental health issues. He smoked, but he wasn't a drug user. I'm not sure if he even used alcohol, maybe rarely. I don't know. I didn't see anything on that. To me, it's like he was a pretty clean kid working hard to try to get his daughter back. And that's where it is. Now, sadly, part of his family, it seems like, was more on his ex's side than him. But, that's just hearsay. We can't be 100% sure on that. But this is the case of Jake Latiolais, and we need to try to get this out there. So if you think you've heard something, if you think you know something, I want you guys to. This is sad, but hopefully, if you're watching this replay in a couple months, this will be different, and I will change the video description if it is. But I have a feeling it's not going to be. That's kind of negative. I hope it is. I hope I'm wrong. But if you look up in the comments, I have posted a link to a Facebook page. I want you guys, if you have any kind of information, I want you to contact his mother through his Facebook page. And I'm going to go ahead and open that up so you guys can see his Facebook page and know you've got the right one. Because I know sometimes you guys can look at things and then you're actually on the wrong deal. So we're going to share this one more time so you can see what we got. This is Jake's missing page. If you have any kind of information on Jake's case, I ask you to call the phone number or email the email address that's listed here on this page. The link is in the video's description. The link is in the comment section. Make sure and contact somebody about this. I will tell you, unfortunately, so far, anybody that has information that has reached out to the police, it hasn't gone anywhere. So I hate to tell you don't contact the police, but don't contact the police because in this situation, it's not going to do any good. Now, eventually, hopefully that's wrong. That will be wrong. And we can say, okay, this is the specific police department that is working on this. But as of right now, you need to contact probably Tina through that Facebook page. Don't spam her, with marriage proposals and BS like that. This mother has had enough trouble, and women online have so much BS through Facebook Messenger. It's ridiculous how many marriage proposals you get through Facebook Messenger. Don't send her that garbage. If you're watching this, don't send her that garbage. But if you have information on her case, please send it to her. This mother needs help. I mean, she doesn't have a badge. She actually went back to school for a private investigator, and she's using that education to find her own son. I mean, this is a mother who is doing everything in her possible, humanly possible, in her power to do something, and she needs help. So it's up to us to share this. If you're from Mississippi, share it all over the place, because in reality, it could be in your neck of the woods. You never know. I mean, what happens? Do you know where your jurisdictional borders are for your police department? Probably not. I mean, what happens if you're out in the country and you're in a 20-foot square piece of land that happens to be in between counties and in between jurisdictional places, and then you don't have nobody? How would you feel if your son went through this and you can't even find out what happened to him? So this
literally is 1 footstep away.
Mm-hmm, literally. I mean, if he had made it to the end of the bridge, he would have been in a definite police jurisdiction. And so if he had just driven a little bit farther, which I contend he didn't drive that truck anywhere, because look, it said his right foot was broken, is what I wrote down. If that's the case, he would have a hard time driving anywhere without that boot. I mean, you've seen what his foot looked like. I would have a hard time driving with the boot. I mean, so he drove that truck to work and everything else. He was doing everything he could to keep working and doing everything he could. But you think he took that boot off with his foot in that shape and drove a truck? Would you like to press a gas pedal without that walking boot? Would you like to press a gas pedal with that foot? I wouldn't, I mean, depending on how his foot was broken, just the act of pushing down with your toes
would be
excruciating.
Yes.
And of course a walking boot keeps your foot steady and flat, so you could just press with your whole foot. But without the walking boot, I contend he may have gone to Walmart. He may have, one podcast said something about a fishing trip. He may have gone on a fishing trip. I contend he made it back to the house. And then something happened, because his walking boot was found at the house. So what did they do? They something happened to him. They drove his truck to the middle of the bridge. They left it running. They abandoned the truck. They didn't think enough to actually shut the truck off, which would have looked a little bit better. But they go ahead and grab his walking boot out of the truck and grab his crutches out of the truck and take the walking boot back to the house and put them back in his room. But the crutches, they just decide to throw out to the wind. Maybe they threw it all in the back of their vehicle and it blew out on the drive home. You think maybe?
Well, they could have been burned down at the house.
Well, see, she did get to search the house before it burned down. And that's when she found his walking boot was at the house. That's also when she found out that all of his guns and everything else had been stolen. So she did get to see the house before it burned down, but she didn't see his crutches in the house. But his walking boot was in the house. I contend whatever he did that night, he made it back to that house.
Yeah,
and he didn't make it anywhere else.
You can't use one without the other in that situation.
No, to me, wherever that walking boot was, that's where he was.
Exactly.
And then just to finish off this story, in case you think that this is all okay, Sonova, you're going down a conspiracy theories, you're running down a rabbit trail. This is all this boy did this to himself. You're just nonsense. Let me give you one more thing that makes you think suspicious. The mother found out that the house had burned down. Nobody could give her an exact date or an exact reason why, but the house burned down, and before another house was moved in there, she was getting it scheduled to get some dogs and was going to search the property. The former roommate, reached out to Tina and told her, please don't stir anything up. I've got a family now. Now, to me, that's suspicious as heck.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, if I was the roommate, I would be like, I'll be out there digging with my bare hands and a kitchen spoon if I have to. We're going to find this guy just so you can prove that it's not me. You know what I mean? Because whether you care anything about the guy or not, technically, he may have been the last person to see him. And if that's the case, he should be a person of interest. And if I was a person of interest, I would be doing everything I could to prove it wasn't me. So be like, okay, let's find this guy, you know.
And also in most cases, it's somebody close to them.
Absolutely. Karen Langston says, so the roommate definitely knows something.
Yes.
I don't know. Is the roommate on drugs? Is the roommate on sleeping pills? Is the roommate passed out from overdose of alcohol? You could not just normally sleep through someone beating holes in the walls in a trailer house. If you're in a trailer house, if you've never lived in a trailer house, let me educate you on some white trash, okay? Because I've lived in lots of trailer houses, so I'm not too proud to say it. I've lived in trailer houses.
I have too. A
pin drops off of a desk at the other end of the house. You're going to hear it. Just the way it is. You're living in a a house with very thin walls, and they're usually pretty small and compact. So something happens at the other end of the house, you're going to hear it. That's just all there is to it. You've got very thin walls.
And
it's not like a normal stick-built, a normal stick-built house has more insulation between the walls. A trailer house doesn't. They're just little thin, particle board walls. And so usually with some kind of wallpaper on it, so there's nothing to muffle sound. So to me, that guy had to be on something to sleep through that, or he's lying out his teeth. Karen says, but if there's a threat on your children or your loved ones, you don't remember nothing, you don't see nothing, and you don't hear nothing. Absolutely.
Right.
To me, that guy, he knows something, he's seen something, or he participated in something. Because to me, it's very suspicious. One of the convictions that the ex-girlfriend had we didn't find an absolute verification of it, but there's a rumor mill that he had been convicted of the same thing. And if that's the case, that looks suspicious as well. And we're not going into details on what that is, but it does have something to do with the children and abuse. So we won't, because I'm not accusing anybody. I'm saying he knows something.
And
she probably knows something.
With the trailer, they don't specify if it's in a trailer park or if it's by itself on land, because if it's in a trailer park, the neighbors would have heard something.
Absolutely. Well, the neighbors would have heard. If it was in like a trailer park, then the neighbors would have heard it. I do know that there was a pond nearby. So to me, I'm sitting here going, it depends also the rowdiness of the park. Some trailer parks are so rowdy, you could, shots are fired and nobody pays any attention because they hear it all the time. It just depends on the breed of trailer park as well. So it just, it depends. But when it comes down to it, nobody's saying that anybody's guilty. We're saying the police should have talked to each one of these people, because each one of these people could be perfectly innocent and just too afraid to say anything. And yet nobody has cleared the names either. Nobody, there's this cloud of suspicion over it. Haley says, have you checked the pond? Maybe his body's in the pond. Nobody's checked anything. Nobody has checked anything. To me, somebody needs to dive that pond. Somebody needs to look at the pond. You can fly a drone over the pond, and most of the time, if the water's clear enough, you can see stuff. I seen a case here a while back where a YouTuber that runs drones, he actually solved a 30-something-year-old cold case because he was just doing aerial footage, and he flew over a pond, and when he got home and started looking at it, it looked like there was a car in that pond. And he cleaned up the photo real well, and he's like, that is a freaking car. So he goes to the police, and the police are like, well, we have a cold case in this area. And so they scrubbed the pond, and they brought up this car, and it still had 2 or 3 bodies in it. And he solved this 30-something-year-old cold case because of his drones. So I'm like, somebody get a drone out there. Somebody dive it. Somebody, drag it, dive it, drone it, something.
Right?
Maybe that should be a t-shirt. Drag it, drive it. You'd have to be in this business to understand it. And I'm trying to.
We started using drones is because if you have to have permission to check people's property.
Yep.
And one of our cases was that situation. And we couldn't, we didn't have the permission, so we couldn't search there, and that's exactly where she was found.
Right.
So that's why we started using drones to go over private property,
right,
and water and whatever.
There's companies out there that do that, and to me that is, we all have our own little things that we can do. And you might think your little thing that you can do isn't important, but if you watch some of these true crime documentaries, some of them are just for entertainment and they disgust me and I can't stand to watch them. But some of them, they are psychologists. Some of them are ex-CSI. Some of them are ex-detectives. Some of them are, each one of them has their own little niche that they bring to the case and they bring to the story. And they all add up to create, a compelling story. And a lot of times those little things that you can do, they can help solve something. I'm a writer and an online marketer, and I can blither to a camera. So that's what I do. I can't solve the case because I do have a badge. Almost said I don't have a badge. And then I look behind me. All of these are my books and my medals. So these are some of the books I've written. Some of the awards I've gotten. Over there's the flag that I got flown in front of Washington, D.C. But I was going to say, I don't have a badge, so I can't officially solve your cold case, but I lied. I do have a badge. Now, Venus, you cannot steal this from me. I know Venus is a super fan. This is actually Buford Pusser's badge.
Ah.
It is a replica of Buford Pusser's badge. So I do have a badge. I can just start wearing it. So sometime I need to go over and show you what all these things are back here, but not tonight. I just want you guys to realize what you may know is more important than you think. Whatever you can bring to the table, whatever you bring to the table will help. Billy Green says that Mississippi River churns and changes so much. It does, but when it comes to the Mississippi River,
It's bad.
but it churns up bodies. See, you can get tangled up in stuff in the Mississippi River. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it is so rough that bodies come to the surface more often than not in the Mississippi River because it's so powerful. There's so much water and so much movement there. And it's always choppy. I have never seen the Mississippi River not just choppy like crazy. Every time I've drove over it, it's just rolling. Okay, so this is what I got. Venus, are you on here? I don't think Venus is still on. Or Venus would be flipping out about my Buford Pusser badge. Be like, you can't have it. So on a serious note, this is a case where you've got a woman, but you've also got a daughter who, I don't know how old she was when this happened, but from pictures, she looked like she was probably under 2. But you've got a daughter who's probably a teenager now or getting pretty close to it, who has lived without her dad, a man who was fighting really hard for her, a man who was working several jobs and going to go to court and fight for her. She has a hero that she wasn't allowed to know. You've got a daughter that will never know the depths of the affection of a father because he fought with everything he had to get her. And yet it wasn't enough. Somebody took that from her. So you have a mother who needs answers. You have a brother who was really close to him who needs answers. You've got you may have, father and aunt. I don't know how close they were, but you have family, but you also have a little girl who's never got to know her dad because of this. And we need to get this case solved. And this case, I believe, is 100% solvable because of this jurisdictional dispute, nothing's done. And so I believe there is so much evidence that is still around in this case that I believe it's 100% solvable. What do you think, Miss T?
Oh, I think so too. I believe it's solvable. I
Yeah.
think it should have already been solved.
Yeah, absolutely. Venus says, haha, girl, I have the same badge. Do you have the little bitty one on a keychain too? I got that one. I got that one the first time I went to the museum. So, which I can't talk about Buford Pusser because I've got so many trolls because of Buford Pusser. I've been called fat and ugly and stupid and ridiculous because of Buford Pusser. I just don't find that it's very classy to try to discredit a dead guy who can't defend himself. So I try to keep my mouth shut, but I get a lot of crap. But I still got his badge. So okay, guys. Did I miss anything, girls? That's all I had on my notes.
I believe it's like you said, that whole scene was staged.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. Yeah. And I
Not
believe
very
the mother
smart about
started.
it.
I'm sorry, what?
They weren't too smart about it, but I do believe it was staged.
I do too. And I believe the mother started poking around and trying to get some answers. And so they just, I believe the house fire was arson.
Yeah.
I just find it too odd that a truck nearby caught fire and then the house catches fire. I'm like, how often does that happen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that it could happen, but that just seems pretty odd to me. And all 3, Venus says she has 3. Venus, you have 3. I only have 2.
Uh-oh.
Venus, you better get back to me. So, okay, well, I'm going to get off here and stop harassing Venus. Venus is a Buford Pusser fan. I'm just kind of a historical crime investigator, so I've investigated lots of things in and around Buford Pusser. But Venus has actually been a fan from Buford from way back when the movies were out. So. All right, well, guys, I'm going to get off here and I will talk to you later. I appreciate you guys signing on. Next week, we'll have another Chasing Justice episode about another disturbing case that needs your help. So in this week, please share, like, comment, subscribe, share. All of that stuff helps out small channels, but all of that stuff boosts these stories in the algorithm. So not only does it help my channel grow, but it also tells Facebook and YouTube and all of that, hey, this story about Jake is very important, so maybe I should tell the viewers more about Jake. And so that's our whole goal in all of this is to get these stories out and get somebody to call in law enforcement and solve these cases. So if you've enjoyed this show, please like, comment, and share. That helps out a lot. Check out the affiliate links. Every book and coffee you buy actually helps me make more videos. It does cost money to do this, and so I do try to cover my own expenses. I don't ask for help from anybody. I just try to cover my own expenses with my books. So I do appreciate that. If you guys would check those out, it would be very, very, very helpful. If you're in Indianapolis next weekend, I'm recording this on March 25th. So if you're in Indianapolis this weekend, make sure and check out the Advocacy Con. And
yeah, I'm jealous.
I know, Cricket. I wish you could go. Okay, I'm going to get off here. I'm sorry I've been a little bit scattered tonight. My ADHD is kicking my butt tonight. I will do better next time. So I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Girls, you want to say bye?
Have a good week.
Have a good night.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bones Coffee Company. You can forget about boring coffee when you drink Bones Coffee. Not only do they offer a variety of flavors such as strawberry cheesecake and maple bacon, they are a family-owned company that puts great detail not only in their coffee, but in the artwork that comes on each individual bag. Bones Coffee has a coffee club that will deliver your favorite coffee to your door every month. If that wasn't enough, they also have some amazing swag to offer. Check out Bones Coffee Company today. I'll have my affiliate links in the show notes for you.